And maybe I'm nuts, or maybe I'm onto something here. But if you read the Declaration of Independence, it basically makes two statements. The first is that people can govern themselves without kings, queens, or popes. And we've largely accomplished that, right? We have accomplished democracy in the United States of America. It's imperfect. It's been screwed up in some ways throughout our history. It's not well balanced, the Electoral College, all this kind of stuff. But we have put into place the democracy that we declared in 1776. The second thing that we declared in 1776, though, that, to quote the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal. And of course, back in that day, man and mankind were the words that today we would use for people and humankind. That declaration in 1776 that all people are created equal obviously was not being played out in 1776. In fact, the guy who wrote it, Jefferson, was a slaveholder himself. But America has been slowly, over 240 years, in fits and starts certainly, moving toward that vision of a nation where, as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, we judge people by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. Obviously, we have a long way to go. I don't mean to minimize that at all. In fact, if anything, I'm emphasizing that. But the United States was created, even though our founding documents said all men are created equal, we were founded as a white ethno state, a state based on ethnicity, as an appendage originally, and then a separated appendage to white England, basically. And we put that into law in 1790. This was during the George Washington administration. We put into law it was called the Immigration Act of 1790, that said that white people can immigrate to the United States, but people of any other race can only immigrate into this country to the extent that they represent 2% of their people who are already here. So we had this racist law it put into place in 1790 to basically limit virtually all immigration into the United States to white people. That stood until 1924. And in 1924, as I recall, I should check my own op-ed, it might be 1928, but let's say the 1920s. That stood until the 1920s, when we passed an updated Immigration Act, which not only created the Border Patrol, but also this was the Naturalization Act of 1790 was the first one. The one in 1924 was called the Johnson-Reed Act, which created the Border Patrol. And, excuse me, in 1790 we said only white people could immigrate to the United States. In 1924 we said non-whites can immigrate to the United States, but only to the extent that they're 2% of the 1890 census. And that held until 1965. So from 1790 till 1965, immigration to the United States was limited by race. And in 1965, Lyndon Johnson, as part of his civil rights package, pushed through the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, which today, most Republicans and the entire white supremacist movement want repealed, which said that immigration into the United States henceforth shall be colorblind. And as a result of that, there have been, since 1965, a large number of people of color who have immigrated to this country. And you combine that with Reagan, basically giving legal citizenship status to between 3 and 4 million Hispanic folks living in this country at that time. Now they're Americans. And as a result of that, the kids entering kindergarten now are majority non-white. Kids being born are majority non-white. In another decade and a half, it could be the voters are majority non-white. And this is making the Republicans nuts. This is making the whole white supremacy movement nuts. Because as Tucker Carlson keeps pointing out on Fox News, the big fear of the whole white supremacist bunch is, oh my God, they're going to replace us. And if they do, they'll do to us what we did to them. We're going to have cops stopping white people and killing us, right? I mean, this is their theory, right? So my question, can America rise above racism and embrace a common vision, a higher vision of a common humanity? And, I think it's possible. I'm very hopeful that it's possible. I think if Republicans take the House or Senate in the 2022 election, and if a Republican takes the White House in 2024, all bets are off. Then we slide back into being a white ethno-state, as we were during Trump. For 4 years, temporarily during Trump, we basically froze all non-white immigration into the United States. And in fact, banned it from a whole bunch of non-white countries, you'll recall. But this was done by executive order, and it's been reversed. So can America finally live up to the second of the two promises that we made in the Declaration of Independence? The first being, hey, we can govern ourselves, we don't need no stinking kings. We've done that. The second being, who is this we ourselves, we the people? Oh, it's all of us. We're all created with equal opportunity under the law, equal authority under the law, equal protection under the law, to paraphrase the 14th Amendment. Can we pull that off? And one of the reasons that this is so important is because America very often in these regards leads the world. When we declared democracy in 1776, the world laughed at us. By the time of the Civil War, there was a handful of democracies, fewer than a dozen. And they all held their breath during the Civil War thinking, okay, this is it, this experiment is going to die. Well, it didn't. And so now 123 of the 192 countries in the world call themselves democracies. We not only did that first promise to ourselves, not only did we do that in the United States, we got 123 other countries to go along with us. Can we do the same thing with racial equality? Can we become the example for the world